Joe had a few things he enjoyed doing most probably before sunrise. Fishing was something he enjoyed doing all alone. On the recommendation of his dream, one foggy morning he went out and rowing his boat he was rowing through a veil of fog. Silence surrounded him, and that was the reason he was able to hearken to every little sound. Swimming further out, one could make out indistinct form a cabin cruiser half sunk and half smothered by ivy, silent and unlived in. Puzzled yet with a slight consideration of the danger involved, Joe moved closer. The man stopped as soon as he started to feel that cold sensation in the pit of his stomach and smelling the sink-like stench. Something felt profoundly amiss. Trying to avoid it, he desperately noticed that his boat is guiding him towards the ghost ship, as if there was a mysterious power that summoned Joe. Procrastination amplified when, to his horror, the engine would not fire up. Suddenly, student murmur low at first, rising quickly to hysteria rises on the wings of whispers. Joe, fighting dread in the water, used the oar to scare away the boat in which he was confused and yearned to be free. As if arising from the deck's shadows, he saw a figure with vacant eyes staring at him. The murmurs rose up to a kind of roaring in Joe's ears, a kind of thunder that arose from the small comments and subdued conversations of the men. With the last strength born of determination, Joe escaped, kicking his engine into high gear not to look behind. Joe no longer wanted to talk about his experience, so he got off the shore, still trembling and pale. He never went to the part of the lake again. After that he had heard the ghostly voices and seen the ghost he encountered. What was once clear water surface began to possess a menacing vibe capable of reminding man of forces that transcended the human mind. Deep into a small and completely surrounded with forests town, a mysterious lake held exotic fish. However, its dark, deep unknownness made them think of a beast that dwells at the bottomless pit. As for Tom and Mike, both fond of fishing, they just shrugged these stories off as purely local legends. And so, one dark, moonless summer night, driven by spirits and curiosity, they have ventured forth to give this interesting legend of theirs the thoroughly scientific treatment it deserved. Unable to contain her child's adventurous spirit, his mother offered to steer their boat to the fathomless depths of the water and the darkness that came with the deep night. Jesting was rife concerning the apparitional creature. The hours ticked by without any catch. And just before they would capitulate, Tom had the terminal momentum jerk him with buzzers. Contending with invisibility, heavyweights, oppositions, and counting on the line, he debated with the boat, which continuously rolled. Forcing a smile on his face, Mike turned on a flashlight which illuminated the water and discovery a huge shadowy creature swimming in the water. Those dilated and faint eyes staring in the darkness spoke of something more frightening than the fish. Even you never had time to do anything they could react the creature suddenly. It moved into their boat with a powerful impact. Tom and Mike, almost shocked, tried to regain their footing in time when the colossal head came into the air, opening its mouth full of sharp fangs. A low roar resounded beyond the water, and a wave of hysteria swept over the crowd. Cutting the line, Tom jerked a match and set the engine in a panicky spurt. However, the creature remained relentless and its massive shape targeted their boat with great speed. The boat moved violently as Ponsu's drumming against it intensified, and at some point, the boat almost tipped over. Thus, with most of their lives at stake, they fled from the coast towards the peninsula in dread and exhaustion. All of them, including the survivors, they all promised never to speak the incident to anyone, and for the rest of their remaining days, they were tormented by the creature's evil stare and deadly jaws gaping at them in their dreams. The folklore grew, and the ordeal depicted a new grim story written in their skin. Stories were told deep in fear. As far as the lake, nothing would be the same as before, for it had become a place of the horrid, of the mystical not spotted in the murky waters. Puronian portrayal of events and characters, Jake enjoyed the company of the gory alone fishing, which is evidenced by his movement to a small house at the bank of the river. Reliance on the directions of the locals is sought, and they sort them about peculiarities of the place, such as specters and other strange omen, which Jake declined in advance as tall fables. Cohabitating as he once saw the park after having had a great day of fishing, he nestled as the winds blew and the sustain similar to old timber creaked. Ignorant of these spectral sounds, he let go of the berth. He trashed these obvious and aggrieved auricular sights. He was suddenly aroused by what he thought was a knock on the door, and as he turned to the door, all he could sense was the darkness. He tried to find out that the process of re-entering was done based on wind convenience, only as per its whimsical wish. A series of knocks followed suit, which, albeit louder in pitch, drew to the house some sort of concern. Still, one slice after another, the doors stayed closed, but the people and the footsteps emerged in between. Deliberate and near they stayed once he put his head down on his pillows. Grasping a flash in his hand, he began to sweep it across the room, and he was as good as searching in the dark for something that he'd never find. It got colder, and the changing wind brought a stranger into sight this time. As a breath reached the misty stage, the initial random whispering next to the unknown individuals quickly turned into low muttered voices as soon as the entire room transitioned into horrific screaming that raged within the confines of the cabin. That feeling of being strangled overwhelmed Jake, and without a second glance at the house, he first went out to his car. On returning, he realized that it was dangerous to live frantically. He managed to collect some effects. Many discussions were made about the new misfortune that entailed the cabin and human lives that were turned into twisted fate. Jake finally understood that while trust equals dread, the horror was effective in ensuring that he would not revisit the place. One could ask the following visitors who came with hooks and other fishing equipment to go home with stories of being faced with ghosts. A home that has so passionately been provided for the female columnist became an abode of spirits and evil presence, a home with a history of haunting. They have people in a boat a little further in the water close to the shore, and the island you can see was once a fishing village, but due to overgrowth, it is slowly but surely becoming a part of nature. However, having been an active place that was once as vibrant as the government for many years, it has deteriorated to such a state the structures narrate a story of a curse and misfortune. No fishermen went fishing there. They considered the lake as being cursed. However, for Alex, a true connoisseur of mystery, as he liked to call himself, he was eager to know what it contained. Since tying his boat, he only walked through the spiderweb city streets, and he only had company in loneliness, while the background highlighted the roaring sea. The odd markings that he could not decipher etched on the walls, or the villagers pretending to be around him all the time. Following the implication that it came as part of what Holden would love to do, was a ruined chapel. Within it was stale, and mold clung to benches void of life in the solitary stair where a dust-encrusted ledger had been left to gather dust. Among them, some revolve around depicting strange happenings, including vanishing, specters, and ominous predictions. It was an exasperating sensation of impending doom, of being surrounded by a malevolent force, of not being able to move away because, should one peer closely, the veneer would crack and there would be a hint of the supernatural, the stench of mortality, and the potential for destruction. Stepping out here loomed into view at the entrance to the chapel, though of course he was only a thought, blurry and not clearly defined, the threat was very palpable. Angst gripped Alex as raced through the back streets that were made of cobblestone and escaped to his boat. Ship-like, he unwound himself from the village, saying the words of the vow. Even if people walked out, they were told as they walked that this was something that might cause people to gasp in surprised horror. They today went away from the village that used to run around with so much vitality, leaving it to be a home to ghosts for generations to come, apart from the people who, out of foolishness, are seen to venture into the abandoned rooms and expose themselves to the effects of curses that were cast.